welcome to Florida Focus, a college football podcast. We have a Florida State Seminole and a Florida Gator together, trying to put aside our differences and bring you the world of college football throughout the Sunshine State. Thank you for joining us. Today we will discuss the Florida State and Florida losses from the previous week. We will preview the upcoming matchups, and we will go around the state of Florida, recapping the other games as well, and previewing their games coming forward. So how are you feeling about today's show, my friend?
Pretty good, man. It was an awful week of college football for Florida. Not just you and I, but just the state of Florida. It was a pretty bad day for college football.
The entire state. What happened? Yeah. One team wins a game, and it was Florida International. That's college and NFL level. What's going on?
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever seen something this crazy before.
Indeed. So we'll go ahead and dive right into it because we have a lot to cover. So usual format is what we'll follow today. I'll let Florida recap the Florida-Georgia game in Jacksonville. After he's finished and we've covered that fully, we'll go to Florida State versus Clemson. So what were your thoughts on the game against the Bulldogs?
It's a little disappointing, but overall I feel pretty good. You look at it's kind of what we did with Vanderbilt. We started off slow, but you can't start off slow with a team like Georgia. And we did some really, really good things, but we did some really, really bad things too. And I really wasn't I got over it pretty quick. I was bummed and disappointed at first. But by like Sunday evening, I was kind of over it, and I was looking at some of the bright spots. You're a little disappointed because you kind of start getting the hype a little bit, getting people patting you on the back, and then the air gets deflated, air gets let out of the ball a little bit, and you kind of feel deflated. But if you just take a step back and you look at the season as a whole, and your team as a whole compared to how they were, I'm feeling pretty good about our team. Offensively, there were some bright spots. I really like our running game. It's still going strong. 170 yards rushing is pretty good, and we had that going for the most part of the game. Just that early fumble by Scarlett really hurt us, and Frank's also fumbling as well. But the offensive line had a pretty decent push, and the running game was going all game. And we kept it close. Really, I thought it was going to be a lot closer at the end. But you look at the score and you kind of 36-17. It feels like it might have been like a blowout. But if you watch the game, early in the third quarter, we had a lead. Yep. And then early in the fourth, we're only down 6 points. One play away from getting the lead. We just kind of ran out of gas as they were hitting the nitro in the last few minutes there. But I feel pretty good overall. Bright spot on defense was our defensive line. That goal line stand. There was 7 or 8 plays on the one, and they couldn't punch it in. And going into the game, right up the middle was, I think, a weak spot of ours. And so it was good to see them rally and have that, and it's a good takeaway from that. Frank's, man, this game was one of those where he hurt us. He really did hurt us. He had a couple of good runs. He had that one nice pass to Swain for the touchdown. But the first play of the game where they do the flea flicker, I think it's a great call, great execution, great blocking. Frank's just missed his man. And that's something that he's pretty good at, the deep ball. Just missed his man. And then him fumbling on the one, his interception, I still don't know who he was throwing it to. I really don't know if it was a busted coverage, but even if it was a busted coverage, there's a Georgia guy there. Don't throw that ball. I don't know what he was doing. It seemed like the game and the hype and who they were playing against got to him.
Okay.
It kind of seemed like he just never really settled, other than that pass to Swain. So this game he really hurt us. Frank's really hurt us, and And he was doing pretty well this season. Not so much winning, but definitely not hurting. But this time he hurt us. So this is kind of disappointing to see that. It was interesting on offense to see Emory Jones come in and run the ball a little bit. I'm still kind of – I don't know how I feel about him coming in on offense because I think you could do the exact same thing with Kadarius Toney, and we have been with Kadarius Toney. You can make the argument he has a better arm, but Toney has a good enough arm to make you at least hesitate. So maybe I'm just saying that because it didn't really produce as much as I wanted it to. So there are some bright spots. Definitely things we definitely have to work on. We have to figure out our corner position. C.J. Henderson went down early. It's our best corner, by far our best corner, and we were already thin in the secondary. And credit to Georgia, they picked on McWilliams, his replacement, and he was a liability all game. It's weird because we've been thin in the secondary all season, but you see the development of the guys that were thrown in early. You see them progressing and getting better. Dean's getting better. Juwan Taylor's getting better. But McWilliams is not. And he seems to be getting beat time and time and time again. And he's just not up to speed as the other guys at this point of the season. He's seen a lot of action. And I'm just kind of like, he's killing us. So we got to do something. We got to switch it up, something with him. But overall, I feel pretty good. Just kind of those turnovers and our secondary is what really was the difference in this game.
Yeah, I think you pointed out most of the obvious things I kind of noticed from the game. The missed pass early on, that would have swung Florida into a 7-3 lead. That would have set the tone going the other way. Yeah, turning Georgia away, first and goal. That's a hard thing to do. And you did it, you said 7 or 8 plays. That's
right.
Incredible. In that situation, you don't expect your defense to ever do that. You say, okay, field goal is the best case scenario. But a lot of times after a turnover like that, you just see a defense not really let them score, but they score in the first play. Just the swing momentum, and they're not expecting to be back on the field. Just that was a fantastic play there. And you mentioned the Swain pass. The other thing that I don't know if we mentioned the rushing attack between the two, but it was almost dead even in rushing. Georgia outrushed by 19 yards. It was actually the passing attack, which we kind of criticized Georgia for previously, is what actually got them to win. So just some surface level thoughts there.
Yeah, I definitely didn't think that Fromm would be the one beating us, but he was, and kudos to him and good job to him. I think a lot of it had to do with Henderson going down early. Same thing happened in the Kentucky game. Marco Wilson goes down real early, and they just picked on his replacement. Henderson goes down real early. They picked on his replacement, and so we have got to figure that out and shore that up or do something. And I don't know, but one thing that's really frustrating is the 4 touchdowns were scored on third down. And you got to think, if you just get half those, are field goals, or 3 of them are field goals, or a punt or something, this game could be different. It could really be different. So I'm not really too disappointed. There's some things here and there, but I'm not like just, we're the worst. I feel still pretty good about this team. We lost to a really good team, and we hung in there for early parts of the fourth quarter. So just some stuff here and there that you can shore up and go forward. But this secondary, if we don't fix that, especially going into next week, we could lose some games that we shouldn't.
Okay. Yeah, I completely agree. You should leave this game feeling pretty good, just like you did, and know that there's a lot of pieces there that can be improved upon, but Mullen definitely has the Gators ahead of schedule. Yeah,
and one thing I noticed, and I'm going to compare it to last year's Georgia game, is when we got down early, we gave up. We kind of just, and Mullen uses this analogy a lot. It's kind of like a tug of war, and you have to strain in. The other team's going to pull, but you just cannot let go of the rope. And I feel like last year, our team let go of the rope at any kind of resistance. We didn't let go of the rope till end of the early into the fourth quarter, and that's a team that you didn't see last year. Vanderbilt game, they were pulling the rope the whole game, and we finally said, no, we're not going to let go of the rope. You can pull, but we're not letting go of the rope.
Okay.
And I really like that analogy a lot. And you can see this team, at least they're not just giving up real quick. They are fighting. They're going through adversity. They bounce right back out of that awful Kentucky loss. They got down early against Mississippi State and bounced back. Vanderbilt bounced back. Even Georgia down 10-0 like that. And we're all of a sudden, early into the third, we have a lead. We're close in the fourth. So I like this team. I like where they're going. I like what they're doing. Just kind of stinks that you sure up some things here and there. You might actually have a chance of beating Georgia. But credit to Georgia. They are clearly were the better team at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And overall, probably the weekend, that was the one I was looking forward to the most, honestly, and it delivered. I feel like it was a good one, and Georgia did pull away late, which I don't feel like there was a whole lot here we didn't expect.
Yeah, right.
From a college fan base, the Florida turnovers would be the recurring thing. You would expect maybe 1 or 2, but not 3.
Right.
Kind of my only surprise, but yeah, this was probably in my opinion, the first game that Felipe Franks just didn't play well, and it kind of cost you. So I mean, other than that, he's having a pretty good year.
Yeah, overall, I think he's doing fantastic. Just I think the moment got to him, and I'm interested to see how not only our team will respond, but he responds specifically.
Okay. How
he's going to respond to a bad game. I think he'll be fine. It helps going back to the swamp, for 3 straight games. So we'll see. We'll see.
Okay, that does help things. I didn't realize it was 3 in a row.
Yeah.
How about that? All right. Well, any last thoughts on the Gators?
No. Other than we gotta figure out a way to win with all whites. This is the third time wearing all whites, which I think they look really nice. I really do. But we're 0-3, I believe, 0-3 in all whites. So maybe schedule like a lighter opponent and go all white just to get the win. I think, to my knowledge, we lost 2009 SEC championship to Alabama, a couple years ago at Tennessee, and then Florida to Georgia.
Awesome. Okay.
So it stinks. I really like the way they look, but just kind of becoming a curse almost.
They're going to rethink that one now.
Yeah. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that game.
Okay, pretty fair. Yep. So that was certainly a competitive game. You see where Georgia's at, and they're the benchmark of the East, and probably the second best team in the SEC.
Yeah.
Moving on to a game in Tallahassee, where Clemson is the benchmark for the ACC and probably the nation, and to a team that did not show up. And the Noles lose at home, 59-10, most points ever given up at home ever.
Yeah.
And the Noles we didn't expect to win this game, but we did not expect, or at least I didn't, as high of a scoring performance as Clemson gave. So, as is my pattern, I'll start with the positives first. We'll get in a second, and then we'll move on to the opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
As you can imagine, plenty of those. Some of the things that Florida State did do well, they did stop Clemson on their first 3 drives, sort of delaying the inevitable, but there was some good pressure there. Actually, surprisingly, had good field position to start the game. In the end of the first quarter, it was 0-0.
Right.
We stopped ATN, their running back, he was just going off on people. The early second quarter, he kind of got some rhythm, but he never really caught on. So he only had 45 yards rushing, which is really low for him considering he was doing 150, 200 against some people.
All right.
Nyquan Murray had some moves. He had some yards after catch. After Francois threw his 1 interception, one of our offensive linemen chased on the linebacker. That's impressive. I always look for those secret effort plays, and that was certainly one of them there.
Yeah.
So I'm proud to see some guys giving some hustle. Our tight end Neighbors, kind of seeing they're slowly working him into the game plan. He's getting 1 to 4 touches a game, and we used him a lot early on. There was another possession. This was probably the most impressive one to me, is Clemson gets the ball right before halftime, and they go down, and actually it was 4th and like 13. It's normally not a place you'd go for it, but they were up 28-0, so there wasn't much to lose. They weren't in field goal range, and they had about 12 seconds left, so they figured, hey, we'll just go for it, and we stopped them. So could have been another 3 points, but didn't end up being the case. Early in the third quarter, this is when we got our field goal. Tamari and Terry, and then Neighbors, our tight end, got involved, and then Nyquan Murray had a red zone catch. So that one drive, to me, is what you would hope your passing offense would look like the entire game. Mm-hmm. So we ended up getting 3 points on that one. And our freshman, Helton, he has some great catches, and he got our long touchdown pass of 73 yards. So excited to see him and where he's going to give us in the future. And there was an interception we got by Litton in the fourth quarter, so that'll round out the positives there. Although there were a few, that's not what probably people are going to take away from this game, which is understandable.
Yeah.
Where do we start?
Yeah.
It kind of began early on. If you're going to return kickoffs, Florida State, let's make sure that you get them past the 15. We'll start with that. And then if you're going to do that, don't get called for a block in the back somewhere else, so that you end up on the 7-yard line to start a drive. Mm-hmm. That's what happened. Francois had some pretty bad throws. We did show early signs of life on offense, and then center went ahead and put it over Francois' head for a 30-yard loss.
Right.
So that killed the 2 first downs we had going. No momentum there, so that's kind of what we've been doing a lot this year, is 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or 3 steps back. We actually had Clemson held to a field goal early on. They ended up roughing the kicker. Extended the drive. They ended up getting a touchdown. The punt return coverage just wasn't there. We gave up 2 punt returns of 30 or 35 yards. Our secondary, very, very suspect and couldn't stop anything. T. Higgins caught 2 touchdowns, and he just did whatever he wanted. Kind of the same thing happened with Rogers. He's their punt returner as well. Cam Akers has another fumble but recovered it. Nasrul Dean, our defensive lineman, gets called for targeting, and he's out for the first half against NC State. 2 other players who will be out for the first half against NC State are Nyquan Murray and White. They were actually both ejected from the game for throwing a punch. Mm-hmm. And this, to me, is the biggest concern. I understand you're going to lose games. I understand you're going to play really tough competition. In memory, this was the first time I've ever seen Florida State players lose their cool and do something like this.
Right.
I'm sure it's happened before. I just can't recall it. And that's absolutely unacceptable. I think Taggart has made that abundantly clear. On the second one, actually, White he wasn't even in the game. He was on the bench. The tackle went out of bounds to him. He throws a punch. Before the referees even finished their decision and made the call on the field, Taggart was already escorting him off. So he said, no matter what the refs are about to say, you're gone.
Wow.
So he later said this week they won't play in the first half of NC State. But that's not actually a rule that NCAA requires. It doesn't carry over like targeting. So he could have let them play the first half, but he chose not to.
Okay.
So, this is probably the first time in a while, even at the end of Bowden's career and then later in Jimbo Fisher's era, there were some questionable decisions to let some guys play. This is probably the first time in 15 years I felt comfortable saying this will actually be handled.
Okay.
And I see no reason to believe that won't be the case. So let's hope that gets cleaned up. That, to me, was the biggest concern. You understand that Clemson's second string is going to go in there and move the ball, but you don't expect them to continue to score like they did.
Right.
And just a very, very lethargic effort by the Noles at home. Lose by 49. There's just not a whole lot of positive you can come out with this. Now, some of the other things that you want to continue to correct is the rushing attack. Now, we knew against Clemson's defensive line, all 4 of these guys are probably going pro. In fact, one of them scored a touchdown in this game.
Yeah.
On offense. The fridge package, I think they called it.
That was a lot of pounds in that package.
Exactly. Florida State rushed 35 times for negative 21 yards. I can't remember a game where we've had that few rushing yards. We actually have won a game negative rushing. That's an off. What's the word I'm looking for? Not an offshoot, an outlier. Thank you.
Oh, okay. New word to me.
Outlier. Okay, it's a mathematical term.
Okay, that's probably why.
There's a trend you would see, and this one is just way out there, but you don't include it in the average because it's just not something that happens enough that it matters or should be factored in. So.
Oh, okay. You dropping knowledge. I like it.
Well, there you go. So 35 rushes, negative 21 yards, punted the ball 12 times. Same story, really. 4 of 17 on third down, 16 penalties. That, to me, was extraordinarily high. And we had 4 fumbles, one of which we lost. So the loss reminded me of a couple of other games because it's when you lose this badly to an opponent. My first thought went to 2006. Florida State loses to Wake Forest at home 30-0.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of started the end of Bobby Bowden's career. Florida State was already struggling that season, and a team that just didn't deserve to have any presence in Tallahassee goes in and shuts them out. So there were some other games that kind of reminded me or came to the forefront of my mind. But Florida State travels to Oklahoma in 2010 and loses very badly. I can't remember the score of that one. I want to say it was like 46-21, something like that.
Yeah.
I remember we were down 34-0 by halftime. We didn't even belong on the same field. And then there were some other games, but to me, losing a game at home like this just can't happen. And Taggart was the first one to say that. So we knew this was going to be a rough year. Didn't expect it to be quite this bad, but I also think that this is something that the Noles can build on.
Right.
And Francois goes down. He's day-to-day, so it's possible that James Blackman starts going forward. Don't know how long that'll be for. But the team will certainly take this as a lesson. I'm certain of it. And substitute some new guys in, get a little bit of fresh blood in there, hopefully revamp some things. So those were my impressions. Now be gentle when I ask you this, Chris. What were some of your thoughts on the game?
I want to see your thoughts on this, actually. Taggart came out and said that he felt like some guys quit. And I thought that during the game. I want to see what you thought, especially in the secondary. It seemed like they just didn't want to cover or tackle or be on the field as the game was slipping away from them.
Yeah, what stood out to me was exactly that. There were some slant routes. One of them, there was a missed tackle. Wide receiver goes 58 yards for a touchdown. The missed tackles on the punt returns. I look at that kind of stuff, and I'm like, this is just basics one-on-one. This is not, okay, you missed a play or two, because we've seen the Noles play, like in the first half against Miami. The effort's there, and you want to win. You see the enthusiasm, and there was just no celebration here. There was no room for excitement, and I think it's pretty obvious that's the case.
Yeah, you saw that the first quarter, like you said, 0-0. That's where you want to be. But once the Florida State seemed like they were shooting themselves in the foot, whether it's the roughing the kicker or the pass interference in the end zone, or like you said, the snap. Just as they were getting things going, they did something that messed themselves up. And once things started to get away, it just seemed like they, especially the second half, they just did not want to be on the field. They didn't want to be there. And I keep going back to this, but it reminds me of Florida, Georgia last year, where it got down early and we just didn't want to be there. I mean, I know the circumstances were different because our coach got fired right after that. But the following game, I think it was the immediate game after, was at Missouri, and that whole game was just awful. We quit. We just absolutely, we did not even start, actually, versus Missouri.
Wow.
And so I'm curious to see how that bad of a loss carries over to a next game, a must-win game, a winnable must-win game. Are they going to get up for it? They should already automatically, but is it going to be so deflating that they don't? I'm very curious because last year's Florida team didn't. They did not respond. They just rolled over. I know, like I said, circumstances were totally different, but I'm very curious to see how they respond to that.
Hey, you and me both, and you're absolutely right. The first I don't know, 4 or 5 drives will probably tell me what I need to know from that too.
Yeah.
You're going on the road to Raleigh, a place that we have very much covered the struggles we've had.
Mm-hmm.
And you have NC State coming off 2 losses. I think they would have lost probably another game if they played West Virginia, but here they are, 2 losses currently. And, you know, I look at all the reports and I see the demeanor of like James Blackman and some of the other guys, and it's very uplifting and it's very encouraging. So let's hope that energizes the team. It gives them a reason to restart, burn the tape from this game, don't even watch it. If you're the coaching staff, you're going to rewatch it to look at some correctional stuff, obviously. But you just tell the guys, all right, we've got a month left. Let's go out and do what we can. We know who we are. Let's play to our strengths. Let's work on our weaknesses.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. You can't go anywhere but up. Like, you can't just stay at rock bottom.
Yep.
And you're going to see these next, like you said, this next month, you're going to see what kind of team you have, what kind of coaching staff you have.
Yeah.
So.
And on the other side of this, how good is Clemson? I mean, I know that Florida State gave up, and this was not a great effort, and Florida State has plenty of struggles this year. But, man, it also, just like the standard for the East is Georgia, we can agree with that. The standard for the entire conference is Clemson, and look how far Florida State has to go.
Yeah, that's Clemson's last few games. They're rolling. They kind of struggled early, as far as Clemson goes, but now they're starting to hit their stride at a good time in the season to do it too.
Yep. And what I saw it with was this is the first game Brian Burns didn't get a sack because Trevor Lawrence doesn't take sacks. He just doesn't do it. He's too smart.
Yeah, he seemed. I haven't watched too much of him, but I got a lot of him this game, and he seemed pretty poised, especially running out of the pocket and scrambling, knowing when he can, the last possible second he has to throw it out of bounds, and knowing, like you said, not to take the sack.
It's impressive. So,
yeah.
You know, a couple of side notes here, and I put this out on Twitter earlier. This was the first ACC team to beat Florida State 4 years in a row.
Okay.
Yep. So that speaks to the dominance in the conference up to this point, but it's also, on the other side, a little bit of a bad sign.
Right.
So, onward and upward, I guess.
So, is Clemson the best chance to someone beating Alabama?
Has to be. And I like their rushing attack. I like their passing game. Their defensive line is not joking around. So there are ways that Clemson can also make some huge mistakes, I think. But from what I've seen from the two teams, and I think this next month will tell us a whole lot more, obviously, because Bama's schedule starts to get way more difficult.
Yeah.
But the teams that Clemson has played, let's see, Texas A&M, they won by 2. And they did struggle against Syracuse, who is bowl eligible, so they're not terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But they might be the best ACC opponent they've played besides NC State. They started to really catch their stride, like you said. And when they played Wake Forest, when they played NC State, they really just put it on them. So,
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good teams out there, but the great ones, we've talked about this before, the great ones don't even mess around with inferior opponents.
Right.
Like, they just put them away early and on to the next one. And you see that with Alabama all year. Now you're starting to see that with Clemson as well.
Yep.
So it's interesting. It does kind of cool. Side note, in the SEC, you kind of have a de facto playoff game, 2 playoff games for the SEC championship. Georgia and Kentucky, and LSU, Alabama. Obviously, there's more games afterwards, but basically those are the 2, the 4 teams that are leading. You know, so that's going to be interesting football in the SEC next week.
Absolutely, yeah. It happens sometimes that you'll see it on one side, but rarely both.
Right.
And especially with the month out, but it's pretty clear to most people that the winners of these 2 games are going to play each other. In Atlanta.
Right.
How about that? I don't think there's really a de facto one for the ACC, although Virginia, who leads the Coastal, does play Virginia Tech at the end of the year, which they've struggled with mightily. They cannot beat the Hokies for whatever reason. So if it comes down to that, I'm going to take Virginia Tech. But that could end up being de facto, but no one's even close to Clemson. So whoever finishes 5-3 in the conference will be second in the Atlantic, is probably my guess.
Speaking of which, I don't know if you caught the end of the Virginia game. I don't forget who they were. I think they beat North Carolina. I'm not sure who that was. But it was like the last minute or two of the game, and they're winning, and something happened, and the ref said, like, holding Virginia Tech.
Oh.
And, like, the whole stadium was just booing. And the announcers caught it, and then, like, you see the ref talking to the head coach, like, it's like smiling, like, yep, I said the wrong one. That was dumb.
Leave it to the ACC refs to do something like that.
Yep. You said it, not me.
Good gracious.
Yeah, fun times.
Yeah.
Fun time. Speaking of the ACC, Miami, another Florida team with another loss.
Ooh,
yeah. Friday night against BC, and BC handled them. It was kind of close first half. Second half, BC just shut them down. Put 10 more points on them, outscored them 10-0 in the second half, won 27-14. I don't know what's going on with Miami. I really don't know. Is this like the real team? Is it a fluke? Was last year a fluke? Like, can't figure it out. The defense was doing okay, but the offense is just not helping them anymore. And I think the defense taking a step back, and the offense hasn't taken any steps forward at all. I understand, like, Friday night, Thursday night games on the road are never easy, but I just didn't see this kind of coming from Miami. And giving up 223 yards rushing, it's not like them. Another 200 in the air, 433 yards total. That's not like their defense. And their offense wasn't doing much either, especially the second half.
Yeah.
So it's weird. This is the ACC for you.
Indeed. And, the Boston College, really, because of Adazio's coaching, they have the ability to win these types of games year in and year out. Now, by this much, and, the score was only by 13, but you're right, it was a pretty dominant win. But to win a game that fashion is pretty rare. Yeah. Now, they've shown signs of it. I mean, heck, they beat Florida State 35-3 last year, and they weren't great in it either, but that's a blowout loss. Against a really premier ACC program. And then they do it again here. So, I always kind of joked that Kentucky and Boston College were like the 7-5, and they're going to make your bowl bids look good in the conference. Yeah. Both very different this year. They're both 8 or 9 win teams, and you got to watch out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So that BC game for Florida State later on looks a little bit tougher now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anytime. Anytime I can take a subtle jab at FSU, I'm going to take it.
Yep. That was a crazy one. And the madness doesn't stop there. Go up to Tampa, which is Northwest, and the Bulls get their first loss of the season. This was something I predicted. I didn't.
Yeah, you knew.
I didn't think they would be in the same league as Houston. Houston takes a massive leap in the polls by winning this game. Mm-hmm. They had a decent win against Arizona and struggled against Texas Tech, but have won everything else. And their quarterback King just went off. The pass defense was very rough against Houston for the South Florida Bulls, and this is all despite the fact that South Florida scores 36 points. They had good return yardage, and their offense was doing a pretty good job.
Right.
But I don't know if it's a curse or sometimes you just catch one of those opponents on the other side of the conference that just kind of have your number. And this is back-to-back years they've lost to Houston.
Right.
And last year, their only 2 losses were Houston and UCF. Well, it's kind of shaping up to be the same way again.
Might be this. Yep, exactly.
This is all in a game, by the way. Oliver didn't even play. He was sitting out. Oh. And so that may be why South Florida had some success. But Oliver's had a little bit less of a good season than we kind of expected. And as a defensive tackle, there's a lot of things you would have hoped to get a sack earlier in the year than you did. But either way, South Florida got exposed. Cronkite still did a good job. Blake Barnett, still a decent quarterback. But they just they gave up just too many passing yards, and their secondary just lost the game for them. So,
right.
Yep. So, yeah, South Florida Bulls. Not a surprise they lost, but they're just a very interesting team. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, if you followed the season, you saw this was eventually going to happen.
Right.
Like, it just you can't play like they have been playing and expect to win every game. They've been fortunate to this point, but yeah, luck right now.
Yep.
All right, we have another Florida team with another loss, and that is FAU. They lost at home to Louisiana Tech, and talk about just backsliding as a team. I really thought that they're going to be a lot better this year, and they're not. And losing at home, a game that is definitely winnable. Louisiana Tech, they lost 21-13, and they did well the first half, but the second half just kind of sputtered, and Tech scores a touchdown in the fourth to go ahead and to secure the win. Singletary did a good job, 171 yards and a touchdown, but Peavy only threw for 115. Not much in the air there. I don't know what's going on with Kiffin's crew there.
Yeah, I think if you were to ask 10 people who's going to win the conference this year, you'd say, Florida Atlantic. That's easy.
Right. Exactly.
They've almost mathematically been eliminated at this point. Probably can't even defend the title. And so, yeah, it's not the rushing game. You mentioned the passing yards. They don't play with a lot of inspiration anymore, I've kind of noticed, and I don't know if there's a specific reason for that.
Right.
But, losing consecutive games like they've done, it can start to affect the psyche for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it might be. It might be that you lose one, okay, you lose 2, 3, then you start to go, okay, well, why are we playing? What is there to play for left? So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Most shocking of all to see their turnaround. What are they, 3-5 now? Something like that?
Yeah.
Jeez.
3-5.
I'm baffled. So very shocked there. UCF was off this week. This gives Mackenzie Milton a chance to rest, dealing with some ankle and shoulder injuries. And
they're very smart to schedule their bye on this week because this is the week where all the Florida schools lose.
Yes.
So.
And that was the other big reason why the UNC game that was canceled because the storm wasn't moved to this week, because it's not like they would have had a true bye if they had done this.
Right.
So that game ends up being moved out 3 or 4 seasons, so it'll get played. But there's nothing to do about Mother Nature. It's just unavoidable.
All right, but let's talk a minute or two about the one Florida team that came out with the W.
Yes.
And that is FIU Panthers.
Do it.
I don't know, the Golden Panthers or regular Panthers, but they beat Western Kentucky on the road 38-17.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of that was a third quarter where they outscored them 14-0. After outscoring them 14-3 in the first half, Western Kentucky puts up a couple touchdowns late, but FIU's rolling. They're trending up for sure. They got it going there. Now they are, can we say this, bowl eligible.
Yeah, all right.
Now, I thought they were going to be pretty decent, but I didn't think they were going to be this good.
Yep. It's going to set up a very interesting matchup next week. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure. So, yeah, go Panthers. Butch Davis doing some good things down there, South Florida.
Right.
It's good to see.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up this week. We've had better. We've had some more positive ones to dwell on. And so the games, you really do hope. You have some learning experiences you gain from it. You figure out some disciplines to moving forward, and you learn to re-enjoy the game. So, having said all that, let's look forward to next week. The Gators, you said, are back at home.
Yes. It is homecoming, and I don't know what is going on outside, but there are police or firemen chasing something out there.
Okay.
So I apologize for that. We got homecoming. Gators are going back to the swamp versus a Missouri team that is dangerous, but their schedule doesn't look like they've been dangerous, especially of late. They've lost 4 of the last 5. They should have beaten Kentucky. They outplayed Kentucky last week to the last play of the game. I know that's got to be frustrating for them. But they've been playing teams relatively tough. I mean, Alabama only beat them by 29. So that's pretty good. They started off decent against Georgia rather. Lost a close one to South Carolina. They did beat a Memphis team pretty handily. So they're a scrappy team. They really are. And I'm really curious to see how we play against them. I am a little concerned. Their strength is their quarterback.
Right.
And their strength is a passing game. And as you saw last week and at a lot of points in the season, one of our weaknesses is that young secondary. So I really hope that we kind of secure that a little bit. But I think one thing we have going for us for sure is our offense is going to be a little bit better. You'd think and hope against a Missouri defense that is definitely not as the caliber of Georgia. And if we were able to keep it close and run the ball against Georgia as well as we did, I think we could do the same thing against Missouri. Maybe control the clock, get our special teams going, and not have to worry too much about the passing game. And I'd like to see, with a team that passes like this, maybe our edge rushers getting some pressure. So I do like that. I'm very curious to see how we respond. I'm hoping that they're just crushed morally by their Kentucky loss, that they don't show up.
Okay.
But I think the Gators should handle it. I say that 10-point win. I think they'll give us a good half, 3 quarters easily, and we pull away at the end there.
Yeah, Drew Lock certainly can sling it all over the yard, and that's what they play to. Unfortunately, that's really the one facet of their team that's strong. So you notice that other teams kind of suppress that. They're forced to do other things. Kentucky's defense just shut them down, and they just couldn't score at all. So that was very surprising to me, and I think Georgia probably did the same thing. I can't remember. It's I think I agree with you. There are some ways Missouri can win this game.
Yeah.
Keeping it close. If Florida continues to turn over the ball, then that's an obvious one, especially if it's done late. But overall, that the secondary, that's where the Gators should be concerned. Obviously, the secondary, giving up pass yards against Georgia and some other teams. This is not the team you want to do that against, obviously, because they're going to start moving the ball a lot quicker and scoring fast. So, I think I agree, though. Closer than the experts think. I don't know the official spread on this one, but I'll take Florida by 3.
Okay, I think the spread's like 6 points, maybe.
Okay,
something like that. But yeah, I am. This is a big concern though for me. First part of the year, one thing that we had going for us was a turnover ratio.
Yeah, you got it.
And the last 2 games, we've turned the ball over 6 times and only took it away once. So we got to fix that, because if that happens again, Missouri's got a quick strike offense and a quarterback that can sling it.
Yep.
You can run into some trouble there.
Yep.
So, but I think that's going to be emphasized, and I think we should be all right.
I agree. Plus, special teams for Florida is unparalleled in the SEC, really. So,
yeah,
can always rely on that for sure.
Yeah, and we get Henderson back in the secondary this week. So,
okay,
hopefully, him coming back, hopefully, can stay in the whole game. And then if I'm Mullen, I'm like, every play is a run play.
All right,
so, we'll see.
So the Gators go back home. Pretty formidable opponent, but winnable game. Florida State goes on a very, very tough 2-game road stretch. They are at NC State this week, visiting the Wolfpack. As I mentioned, NC State has lost 2 games in a row, their first 2 of the season, and probably looking for a W, for sure.
Yeah.
The struggles at NC State have been chronicled enough that I won't bore the listeners with that, but this actually looked like a winnable game for a while, and that can still be done if this team comes out firing. Look at the first few possessions. How will the suspension in the first half affect us. NC State doesn't run the ball very well. I think they're last in the conference, but they can torch you through the air. So how about this? We're both facing teams that just throw it a lot.
Okay.
I think Kelvin Harmon for NC State last week had 12 catches for 240 yards and 2 touchdowns. I'm not exaggerating. He was just catching everything. So he has to be stopped. I mentioned the Wolfpack probably would have lost to West Virginia unless the Mountaineers had come out flat, but we'll never know. The other things that we need to work on in our favor is NC State doesn't excel in the turnover ratio, and they also don't have a lot of return yards as far as punts and kickoffs. So that means that we need to take advantage of the field position that kind of stuff's going to allow.
All right.
And that's the one thing that we struggle with all year, and the times that we have it, we absolutely have to score. No questions about it. They also don't commit a lot of penalties, and so they play pretty clean game. They've only punted 24 times this year, so they're either turning it over a lot or going for it. So good for them, but I don't know, Florida State 24 punts. I think we'd get to that by 2.5 games. It's pretty high.
Right.
I think we had 14 alone against Clemson. Is that right? Let me check here. 16. No, 12. I'm sorry. It was 12.
Oh, whew.
I was like, well, it wasn't quite that high. 16 penalties, 12 punts.
Okay. 16 penalties is pretty high.
Yeah. So the other thing I noticed about NC State is after this game, well, you can include this game too, they have a really weak remaining schedule. They play Florida State, Wake Forest, Louisville, North Carolina, and East Carolina.
Oh, wow.
That's who they have the rest of the way. I think combined, none of those teams are bowl eligible. We probably have 6-7 wins in there, excluding
Right.
Florida State, who's 4-4. So how will that affect this game? I'm not sure. They figure, okay, we get past a quote rival, somebody who we've owned in the past. It's pretty easy going, so they're probably going to end up with 9 wins pretty easily. So a pretty decent team coming out of the Atlantic. And it's funny you mentioned the Gator jerseys because Florida State's busting out one of our alternatives, and this made my number 4 on our jerseys episode. We're going to be wearing a white jersey top and a garnet pant bottom.
Oh, okay.
So I haven't seen one of this combination in quite some time. We wore these in 2003 in the Swamp. And then we also wore them against Miami in the Orange Bowl one year. So if those were the most recent times, then you're talking, 14 years ago.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think that I got a feeling Florida State wins this game. I really do. And I know it's tough, looking at Florida State's last game, like how are they going to win any game, right? If you overreact and stuff, it's easy to do that.
Sure.
Looking at the score, looking at the performance, but NC State's stepping back. They're stumbling back a little bit too. So, I just can't fathom Florida State not showing up for this and Taggart not allowing them to just roll over. So I think a lot of Florida State players are embarrassed. It's a home game. They dropped 59 on you,
yep.
And I think they're going to be able, take that embarrassment and turn it into anger, and they want to take it out on the next team. That's NC State. So I think Florida State squeaks this one out.
Wow, I appreciate you saying that because I think you're absolutely right. That would be the reason you'd win this game. You rally the troops. You get everybody fired up. You have a great week of practice. You put the distractions aside. The only concern is you're going on the road for this one.
Yeah. I'm not so high on NC State anymore.
Yeah.
It's kind of what's making it. I don't think Florida State runs away with it, but I'd give them a touchdown.
I like that. I actually I was going to pick Florida State to win, but like I said, I'd really have to see the first quarter play out before I know for sure. Like, you could say, Florida State's going to win in the first quarter.
You'll know after the first quarter.
Yeah, you go down to 17-0, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, this team's done, and this game will determine the rest of the year. Will you even get close to a bowl game? Yeah, you're right. You have to win this one, and you have to pull an upset in the last 3 games. So, it's kind of funny. Florida State doesn't have a good win this year, but you're like, we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Most of the time, they should be going to a bowl game. But I asked my response to that is based on what? Their Wake Forest win, or maybe how they squeaked it out against Northern Illinois. Florida State's not beating anybody good, so everybody you're playing against the rest of the year is better than you, and you just have to, support the spear. Come out swinging hard, not literally, guys.
Because you'll get benched.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, to your point, one of the biggest things you can point to is look how they played against Miami. Well, now Miami is not looking that hot either. Yeah. So, and Virginia Tech loses to Old Dominion. Although now you can kind of point to your losses, like Syracuse wasn't as bad. But yeah, I really don't know if you can point to a good game.
Yeah, Wake Forest was the most complete game, but they're not good.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, hopeful there. But I'm going to take Florida State to win. Nothing to lose at this point.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Very true. All right. Let's see. Next up for the Miami Hurricanes, they have a home game against Duke. Now, I haven't really followed too much of Duke, but you got to think Miami's going to pull this one out, especially going back home. Enough of this road game nonsense versus a Duke team that schedule-wise they're 5-3. You can speak to how well they are, but I think Miami bounces back in a big way, mainly on their defense at home.
Yeah, I think I agree. And I think Duke's lost their last 2 games, if I remember correctly. And there was a time I was like, hey, Duke looks like the best team in the conference. At the time, they were hot, but they've cooled off pretty rapidly. They lost to Virginia Tech. They've been in and out with quarterback injuries, and so that's affected some things. And Duke is Duke. They're going to be 6 or 7 wins. And it's clear now that Virginia is the best team in the Coastal, and it's their division to lose. I personally think they will. I think Virginia Tech still hangs on to win the Coastal. But if I'm a UCF fan, I want Pittsburgh to win the Coastal and then upset Clemson and become the ACC champion.
Okay.
All right, so Unite fans listening, you should be rooting for the Pittsburgh Panthers right now. you need chaos, and that's part of the formula. So,
you need chaos. I like that.
And that's kind of interesting. But, yeah, I agree. Duke is starting to slide off, and they're going to recover enough to come bowl eligible, but I don't see a way that Mark Richt isn't ready for this. As much heat as he's gotten the last 2 weeks, he's going to come out ready.
Yeah, right. Especially at home. That's the biggest factor right there.
Yep.
So, yeah. All right.
Yep. So UCF, we mentioned, plays on a Thursday night. They play Temple. I think in conference and maybe on the season, this will be the best defense that UCF's seen this entire year.
All right.
Will it matter? No. UCF's still going to win. They're going to score 31 points. We've become reliant on that. It's 20 games in a row. So why not? They're actually giving 10 points to Temple. So favored by a touchdown and a field goal. And I don't know, coming into the season, I would have thought that probably the Temple game would have been their closest of the year, despite the fact they had the week off before. That ended up being Memphis, clearly. And Memphis just got deflated. That's why they lost so badly to Missouri the week after, I'm certain. But
okay.
I still, there's a lot to say about one of the worst SEC teams in Missouri beating somebody in the American so badly. There is quite a discrepancy, in the conferences. Mm-hmm. There really is.
Yeah.
So Temple's still undefeated in the American, surprisingly.
Really?
Yeah, good win over Cincinnati. But you're like, what team are you? They lost to Boston College. They lost to Villanova. To start the year, what kind of team are you going to get? And
I didn't know Villanova played football. I just thought they played a basketball school.
I know, right? I think they're D2.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then, why are you losing a game like that? The Americans starting off the season look pretty bad because of games just like that.
Yeah.
So, on the Temple, surprisingly, has had some success in the American. They even won the conference one year in an upset in the title game, but I don't see it here. Not on the road. UCF is actually filling their stadium when they have games now. They've had to adjust the student section because they have more students coming to the games. That Temple just won't be ready. So Knights again win comfortably, and they probably will the rest of the season. You're just gonna hear me say that a lot.
Okay. I think it's as bad as the bypass Bulls are playing. I think it comes down to that game.
Yeah, it could be. And you know what? I'm even confident saying this that if Mackenzie Milton doesn't even start, because we talked about this last week that that they are so much better even with their backup, Daryl Mack.
Yeah.
It won't even matter who starts. I just think it's a bigger blowout if Mackenzie Milton's playing.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I agree. UCF, it's no contest.
Yeah. Okay,
so we have a nice showdown here in South Florida. The FAU-FIU clash, if you will. And I'm looking at this game. FAU, they've lost 4 out of the last 5. Meanwhile, FIU has won 4 in a row. And their loss before that was Miami. It's crazy to say this, but, I mean, you got to go FIU, right?
I am. And you know what? A month ago, I'd have said, you're crazy. There's no way. I'd pick FAU to win by 13. Now I'm not going to go on the bandwagon. I'm going to say, hey, all right, Panthers, get it done.
Yeah.
Florida Atlantic is just not playing well right now. And I don't know that there's a good recipe to get back on track. You're feeding Singletary. That's your guy, and you're still losing.
Yeah.
So what else do you turn to?
I mean, if you're FIU, let Singletary do whatever he wants to do. The quarterbacks aren't going to stop it. Robinson, their leading quarterback, 8 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. So, I mean, if you go ahead, let him beat you. Singletary, you do your stuff. We're going to stop the passing game. And then enjoy your victory, because that's the way you win that game.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's in Miami, correct?
FIU, yeah.
There you go. That's 3 or 4 point swing right there.
Not that far from Florida Atlantic, honestly, but still a home game.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I didn't think I would say that they'd be favored in this game, but they are.
Yeah, I think I saw that it's a 4-point matchup. The Panthers are favored, so that means Vegas is thinking if this is neutral site, it's just a pick'em game. So
I think they have like 10-point win.
Ooh.
I'm all on that bandwagon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Heck, why not? And you're right. A good point about quarterback. Robinson just not getting it done. So, good for them. Yeah, the Golden State matchup. Florida Atlantic making the rounds around the state. Good for them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So the bypass Bulls are back in action.
Mm-hmm. They're gonna. I like it. You're saying it.
Yep.
It's a thing. I like it.
We trademarked that, right? I think we got that.
We should have.
Working on it. Okay. Well.
Okay.
Someone else may have it out there. It's too late now. I don't know.
Right.
So South Florida comes back home. They get the Tulane and Green Wave, and this will get them back on their winning ways. I think Tulane has only 1 or 2 wins on the season. I think their best game probably was they took Wake Forest in overtime week 1.
Right.
And just not a whole lot to celebrate down there in New Orleans. So I think South Florida's gonna be fine. Like I said, the offense played really well in a loss last week, and they've played pretty well this entire year. They just haven't beaten anybody good. Houston was their chance to make a bigger statement, and that opportunity is gone. This is the same team that beat Georgia Tech, that beat Illinois. So out of conference, they're helping the cause of the AAC, but Tulane just not enough. They don't have a lot of offense. They don't have a lot of defense. They don't have a lot of special teams. They don't have a lot of coaching. Did I cover that all? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think you did. The water boys are slacking. Yeah. Yeah, it's the worst.
Yeah. So South Florida will be fine.
Yeah, I agree. Awesome.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Absolutely. Well, it's hasn't been a dull week by any means, and we're looking forward to the next one. So there's been a lot of ups and downs in the year kind of figure, obviously, this one is a down week, and, those things happened, but it's always darkest before the dawn, right?
Oh, nice. Okay. That's an inspirational thought for the day. I love it. Yeah, we saw this. I mean, we saw this beginning of the season. We both circled this as okay, we're going to be depressed on this day. So it kind of helps going into the weekend, which you know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
But it's nice to go through with it, talk about it, and then move on.
Right.
So, good.
Absolutely. And I said preseason I thought this would be a 3-game losing stretch for the Noles, and so lost the first one as expected. So any victory in the next 2 weeks would just be fantastic.
Yeah. And for us, the Georgia loss being our only second loss,
sure.
I'm happy. I'm happy.
Absolutely.
So, I'm okay with it.
Yep. Very good.
I mean, our losses are to Kentucky's 12 or something like that, and Georgia's, I don't know what they were,
7.
I don't know, but two high-ranked teams. So I'm okay. I'm totally fine.
Right. Win the games you should,
yeah.
And be competitive in the ones that are questionable. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we laid out some predictions there. We talked about our takes on the games. So plenty of ways the fans get in touch with us, Chris. How can they reach out to us to tell us some things that we missed or their own opinions of how the Florida teams performed this week?
Plenty of ways. Let's start with our website, FloridaFocusPodcast.libsyn.com, Libsyn, Libsyn. Hit us up at Facebook and YouTube, Florida Focus Podcast. Twitter, very active there, at Florida Focus Pod. Email FloridaFocusPodcast@yahoo.com. And Snapchat and Instagram, FL Focus Pod, and of course our Patreon account.
Excellent, very good. Well, thank you so much to the fans. We have a whole lot coming up, and I'll just let all the fans know right now. Chris and I are working on something very special we're going to have out to you along with this episode.